you when the light goes green. Best believe I'm in the zone to be. From a yin to my yang to see. Put a grin on my chin when you come to me. Cause I'll win, I'm a one of a kind, and I'll bring death to the place you're about to be. Another river of blood running under my feet. Forged in the fire lit long ago. Stand next to me, you'll never stand alone. I'm last to leave, but the first to go. Lord, make me dead before you make me whole. I feed on the fear of the devil inside of the enemy faces in my sight. Aim with a hand, shoot with a mind, kill with a heart like Arctic ice.
I am a soldier and I'm marching on.
I am a soldier and I'm marching on.
I am a warrior, this is my song.
I am a warrior and this is my song. I'm basking the glow of the rising war. Lay waste to the ground of an enemy shore. Wade through the blood spilled on the floor. And if another one stands, I'll kill some more. Bullet in the breach and a fire in me. Like a cigarette thrown to gasoline. If death don't bring you fear, I swear you'll fear these marching feet. Come to the nightmare, come to me. Deep down in the dark where the devil be. In the mall where the jaws and the razor teeth. Where the brimstone burns and the angel weeps. Crawl to the gods if I cross your path. And my silhouette hangs like a body bag. Hope is a moment now long past. The shadow of death is the one I cast. I am a soldier and I'm marching on. I am a warrior and this is my song. My eyes are steel and my gaze is long. I am a warrior and this is my song.
We're not just going to shoot the bastard. We're going to cut out their living guts and use them to grease the treads of our tanks. We're going to murder those lousy bastards by the bushel.
Now I live lean and I mean to inflict the grief. And the least of me is still out of your reach. The killing machine's gonna do the deed until the river runs dry and my last breath leaves. Chin in the air with a head held high. I'll stand in the path of the enemy line. Feel no fear, know my pride. For God and country I'll end your life. I am a soldier and I'm marching on. I am a warrior and this is my song. My eyes are steel and my gaze is long. I am a warrior and this is my song.
All right, now you sons of bitches. You know how I feel.
And welcome to Cold War Radio, ladies and gentlemen, live on our home base, WAAR. We are America Radio, your number one source for streaming political and government talk anywhere. I'm Hutch Bailey Jr., deep down in the bunker in my Smith & Wesson studio in the city of Pittsburgh. And from the Shenandoah Valley, let's welcome Jack to the program. Good evening, Jack.
Hey, Hutch. Hey, everyone in Spreaker Chat and everyone listening. Welcome to the show. This one seems like it's loaded up again there, Hutch, so why don't we get to it?
We should. Follow me on Spreaker, ladies and gentlemen. Like the Facebook page, facebook.com/Cold War Radio, 2 A's in war. That is significant because that's where all the videos that the audio clips for the show, which there are 8 of them tonight, are located. You can catch the show on Roku via Blueberry, YouTube, the405media.com, iHeartRadio, the Cold War Radio app, which is free in your iTunes, iPhone, or Android app store. How about that? The email, hutch@steelcityresistance.com, the Cold War Radio patron hotline, 412-567-1460. The chat room is up. You can go to Spreaker, and you can catch all the links at steelcityresistance.com. You can also catch the show notes links there. This is Cold War Radio 530. Become a Cold War Radio patron. That way you can decide what we're worth to you for an entire month. You can send mail, Hutch Bailey Jr., P.O. Box 96022, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania 15226. In the links section of the website at steelcityresistance.com, you can press a link and get 15% off the official coffee of Cold War Radio, Black Rifle Coffee. 15% off if you utilize that link. Great stuff. I have a cup right next to me right now. Let's get into this. First, before I get into the published material, I do have a story on this, a very short one, because I know that all of my brothers and sisters are going to be carrying this story all night. So usually when that happens, I try to stay away from it. Those of you that have listened for a long time, you understand that. But there was an attack in New York City, and we just want to acknowledge that and send our prayers there. That being said, I want to ask a question. And I'll ask you first, Jack, and then you can call in if anybody else wants to respond, because it's a little harsh. 412-567-1460 is where you can respond. But when you have a local and state government that the people have elected in New York City and New York State that are doing everything in their power to keep law enforcement and keep the military and keep the American people from crushing these insidious terrorists, how can you continue to feel bad every time this happens? I mean, I look at this, and there is absolutely nothing being done to make this go away. And anybody who stands up and tries to do that is vilified in New York City. And yet, when this obvious thing, and it'll happen again, and it'll continue happening, you notice this kind of thing doesn't happen in conservative areas. It only happens in the liberal areas. But I'm sorry, and I know that's a cynical way of looking at things, but it's just never going to end if we don't end it.
Yeah, I mean, it's fresh and it's just happened, and everybody's concerned about the victims and their families of those that were lost. But if you look at it from where you're coming at, I'm like, is this the first time we've seen a rental truck used as a murder device on the streets? I don't think so. Didn't it happen quite a few times already?
Certainly. They published it in their magazine.
So you would think that a city as large as New York City, knowing that, I mean, it just had a couple of bombs, what was it, pressure cooker bombs there last year, that they would, at least from the infrastructure part, have ways to block trucks from getting onto the bike path, at least, you would think.
Something. I mean
something in there, because the guy just drove, boom, turned in, rode down one block, mowed over how many people, then turned back out and hit a bus.
I'm with the chat room, too. I'm going to tell you, I am. I'm one of the people that had no problem with the United States government separating Germans and Japanese from the rest of the country during World War II. I had no problem at all with that. And I would have no problem with putting a little bit more pressure on these Muslim communities. I mean, and you can say what you want about that, but that's the way I feel. I wouldn't let them serve in the military either. I mean, there would be some serious restrictions until this is fixed. And they're the only people that can fix it. All we can do is try to protect ourselves from it and from them. But if we don't if we don't identify the enemy, like Colonel Allen West said, we're going to continue to chase our tail. If we can't identify and call out the enemy for what it is. All right, I just wanted to get that off of my chest, and you can send a hate mail, hutch@steelcityresistance.com. I'm surprised more people aren't, but hey, what are you going to do? Maybe everybody's starting to pay attention.
Hey, well, the one good thing is how swiftly it became called a terror attack. It was like, boom.
He was screaming out a lot.
The other good thing is they have the guy in custody. Maybe they can squeeze some information out of this guy and perhaps maybe round up some of his cohorts or people that feel the same way he does about Americans.
There you go, ACLU. Go defend them. Get your crack lawyers up there and defend them, ACLU. All right, let's get into the show a little bit. We have this thing kicking around with the Podesta group, the Podesta's PAC and organization, and I'm going to call out, actually, the spokesman is going to call out. You're starting to see the Democrats really scramble. And one of the reasons this Podesta that's under the microscope right now is a huge Democrat donor. I want you to listen to the scope of these Democrats that have taken money from this guy. Producer, the Podesta clip.
Democrats have thousands of reasons to love Tony Podesta. 7 Democratic senators have accepted donations for their 2018 campaigns from super lobbyist Tony Podesta, FEC files show. Special counsel Robert Mueller is reportedly probing the Podesta group as part of his investigation into Russian influence operations in the United States. Podesta, whose brother John was Hillary Clinton's campaign chair in 2016, resigned from the group on Monday following increasing scrutiny into his group's lobbying activities for foreign interests. 6 Democratic senators who Podesta gave money to will be up for re-election in 2018. Podesta gave $2,000 to Indiana Senator Joe Donnelly, $1,500 to Missouri Senator Claire McCaskill, $1,000 to North Dakota Senator Heidi Heitkamp, $1,000 to Wisconsin Senator Tammy Baldwin, $1,000 to West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin, and $1,000 to Montana Senator John Tester, according to FEC filings. Podesta also gave money to California Senator Dianne Feinstein. While her seat is considered safely Democratic, she is facing a primary challenger. Podesta also gave the legal limit donation of $33,900 to the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee.
So they're getting a little bit nervous, Jack, over Mr. Podesta, and as well they should be. You said something to me earlier about Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, there was another excellent show last night. Podesta's attorneys sent Fox News and Tucker Carlson a cease and desist, stop reporting on tying the Podesta group with, I guess, GPS fusion and all this stuff. And Tucker basically laughed it off. But what was interesting, he had Jonathan Turley on later on. They were discussing Manafort and the ties to Podesta group and a former GOP congressman, Never Trumper, who's running a Mercury Consulting or something. That was the other group that he was supposedly tied in with Manafort, doing all this lobbying for the Ukrainian government without reporting it. And he's saying that this is how the swamp works.
And that's true,
He
too.
found it funny that this is what they brought the charges up, because they could basically charge all of these people for the same thing. I mean, they let the Podesta group retrofile the FARA registration 4 years ago was when they were dealing with it, and they haven't dealt with them since. But they let them file it this year, and they basically just let it go. And I'm just wondering,
they're sitting there and they think they're all overeducated, and they think that they're the smartest people in the world. They did it one time and it worked, so now they think they're above the law, and they're just going to surround themselves with lawyers.
It's amazing to see the mindset that's in there. I mean, Tucker Carlson cornered a Democratic congressman and said, "Why don't you stand up and ask for complete transparency of the Congress, and say who is talking with foreign companies, lobbyists, who is taking these meetings?" I mean, they don't disclose it. I mean, these people in Congress are there to serve us. They're not there to fill their pockets with lobbyist money. I mean, you're talking about Podesta funneling all these campaign donations to these Senate candidates. Where did that money come from? From some overseas guy that paid him, and now he's just moving it to support.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a once in a generational opportunity that we have here with this president and this administration. You've got the entire Democrat crime family. I want you to listen to the DNC chief, who's Perez, stonewalls reporters on payments to Fusion GPS. Listen to this report on this.
Democratic National Committee's new chairman stonewalled reporters by refusing to divulge any concrete information about the DNC's financial payments to Fusion GPS, the Oppo research company that produced the salacious Trump dossier. In his first national press conference since the DNC payments became public, Perez stoutly defended the DNC's decision to hire Fusion GPS, saying it would have constituted malpractice not to retain the Oppo research firm. But Perez refused to disclose any basic information about the DNC's role with the dossier and Fusion GPS. When specifically asked, the DNC chairman declined to report how much money the DNC paid Fusion GPS, which DNC official authorized the payment, or identify any DNC official who actively collaborated with the Oppo research firm. Perez also indicated that he did not order any internal investigation about the DNC's role with the firm. The DNC chairman continued to plead ignorance over the payments, repeating a previous claim that the hiring of Fusion GPS did not occur on his watch. He also repeated the Democrats' charge that the Russians hacked the DNC emails and that the Russians were in regular contact with the Trump campaign. He also pointed a finger at the Washington Free Beacon's financier, Paul Singer, who retained Fusion GPS before the dossier was compiled, claiming that the DNC merely continued the project.
Oh, for an adult Justice Department, Jack. If we only had a sheriff in town, these people they'd be rounded up. There wouldn't be any Democrats left. So we got a lot coming up.
Yeah, it's amazing that Tom Perez, everything's above board here. We didn't do anything, and he just couldn't help himself. Trump.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, what I want to do now is there's a story that's kind of being pushed under the rug a little bit. It's not getting the attention that it deserves. So we're going to spend quite a bit of time on it right now, probably to the detriment of the rest of the show notes. That being said, I want to go over the sentencing is getting ready to begin in Sergeant Bowe Bergdahl's court-martial. And I just want to make sure everybody remembers all the details leading up to where we are today. And probably one of the most important ones, Jack and I are both veterans. We were both NCOs of the United States Army at one time or another. And it is very offensive to me to watch this scum being referred to as a sergeant, because he did nothing to earn that. When he was captured, quote unquote, when he broke camp, he was a private. So he'd been in the Army about a year probably. He might have been a PFC. Was he a PFC?
I'm thinking a PFC.
All right, so he was an E3. All right, and the only reason he got, quote unquote, promoted to sergeant is because of time and because they were considering him a POW. But other sergeants have to go to school. They have to do things to become a sergeant. He's no sergeant. He's a private. That's the first thing. Now, I want to go through some things. Like I said, he's getting ready to be sentenced in his court-martial. But I want to bring back some different moments that led up to this. Now, remember, this guy was in Afghanistan, a private. And you'll hear one of his sergeants talk about what he was talking about when he was with his troops. But the first thing I want you to hear is I want you to hear a woman that should be in prison, former Ambassador Susan Rice. I want you to hear how she characterizes Bowe Bergdahl's service.
Finally, on this point, Sergeant Bergdahl, there are a lot of questions about how he originally was captured and whether or not he had deserted, had left his post. Is that going to be investigated? And if it's found that he did indeed leave his post, will he be disciplined or has already paid the price?
Certainly, anybody who's been held in those conditions in captivity for 5 years has paid an extraordinary price. But that is really not the point. The point is that he's back. He's going to be safely reunited with his family. He served the United States with honor and distinction, and we'll have the opportunity eventually to learn what has transpired in the past years. But what's most important now is his health and well-being, that he have the opportunity to recover in peace and security and be reunited with his family, which is why this is such a joyous day.
Finally, we're about to hear from Senator.
Now, Jack, when I hear these American-hating leftists start talking about honor and integrity, it makes me cringe. It absolutely makes me cringe. She's putting him up there with honorable warriors, a lot of which who didn't even want to be there, but who were there and did what they had to do and served with dignity. To put this guy with them, it drives me nuts.
It's horrible. I mean, this coming from Susan Benghazi was a YouTube video. Rice, she's talking about the time that he served should be taken, and I'm like, wait a minute. How about the 6 soldiers that paid the ultimate price, and quite a few others that were wounded and debilitated for life because this guy deserted his post?
And she's not done yet. She's not done. Let's not forget, this man walked away from his secure encampment, wherever they were, their position.
He was on guard duty.
Right, and he walked away. Let's listen. Let's let Susan Rice finish up.
You've seen the criticism already coming in. Martha Raddatz mentioned some of it from Mike Rogers, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. We also have the top Republicans on the Armed Services Committee saying this is going to put Americans at risk, threaten American lives because you broke the policy of trading with terrorists. What's your reaction to that?
Well, George, this is a very special situation. Sergeant Bergdahl wasn't simply a hostage. He was an American prisoner of war, captured on the battlefield. We have a sacred obligation that we have upheld since the founding of our republic to do our utmost to bring back our men and women who were taken in battle. And we did that in this instance. If for some reason we took a position now in the 21st century when some of our adversaries may not be traditional state actors, that we would not do our utmost to bring our prisoners of war home, that would break faith with the American people and with the men and women who serve in uniform. So regardless of who may be holding an American prisoner of war, we must do our best to bring him or her back.
So first she says he served with honor and dignity, and now she says he was snatched from the battlefield. It's unbelievable this woman is still free. And I know that's not a crime, but...
Wag the dog. Wag the dog, and as you play the rest of these clips, the whole thing will be laid out why they were doing this. It was just all for show.
Yep. Now here's what this is one of the ones that absolutely is probably the most cringeworthy clip of all of them. I want you to pay special attention to when Bowe Bergdahl's father starts talking, but to hear President Obama talk the way he's talking in this clip is pretty tough to take. Producer, the Obama clip.
Good afternoon, everybody. This morning, I called Bob and Jannie Bergdahl and told them that after nearly 5 years in captivity, their son Bowe is coming home. Sergeant Bergdahl has missed birthdays and holidays and the simple moments with family and friends, which all of us take for granted. But while Bowe was gone, he was never forgotten. His parents thought about him and prayed for him every single day, as did his sister Sky, who prayed for his safe return. He wasn't forgotten by his community in Idaho or the military, which rallied to support the Bergdahls through thick and thin. And he wasn't forgotten by his country, because the United States of America does not ever leave our men and women in uniform behind. As Commander-in-Chief, I am proud of the service members who recovered Sergeant Bergdahl and brought him safely out of harm's way. As usual, they performed with extraordinary courage and professionalism, and they've made their nation proud. Right now, our top priority is making sure that Bowe gets the care and support that he needs and that he can be reunited with his family as soon as possible. I'm also grateful for the tireless work of our diplomats and for the cooperation of the government of Qatar in helping to secure Bowe's release. We've worked for several years to achieve this goal, and earlier this week I was able to personally thank the Emir of Qatar for his leadership in helping us get it done. As part of this effort, the United States is transferring 5 detainees from the prison in Guantanamo Bay to Qatar. The Qatari government has given us assurances that it will put in place measures to protect our national security. I also want to express gratitude to the Afghan government, which has always supported our efforts to secure Bowe's release. Going forward, the United States will continue to support an Afghan-led process of reconciliation, which could help secure a hard-earned peace within a sovereign and unified Afghanistan. As I said earlier this week, we're committed to winding down the war in Afghanistan, and we are committed to closing Gitmo. But we also made an ironclad commitment to bring our prisoners of war home. That's who we are as Americans. It's a profound obligation within our military, and today, at least in this instance, it's a promise we've been able to keep. I am mindful, though, that there are many troops who remain missing in the past. That's why we're never going to forget. We're never going to give up our search for service members who remain unaccounted for. We also remain deeply committed to securing the release of American citizens who are unjustly detained abroad and deserve to be reunited with their families, just like the Bergdahls soon will be. Bob and Janie, today families across America share in the joy that I know you feel. As a parent, I can't imagine the hardship that you guys have gone through. As president, I know that I speak for all Americans when I say we cannot wait for the moment when you are reunited and your son Bowe is back in your arms. So with that, I'd like Bob to have an opportunity to say something, and Jan, if she'd like as well. Please.
I just want to say thank you to everyone who has supported Bowe. He's had a wonderful team everywhere. We will continue to stay strong for Bowe while he recovers. Thank you.
I'd like to say to Bowe right now, who's having trouble speaking English, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Zayabayem. I'm your father, Bowe. The people of Afghanistan, the same. Khalifa al-Thani, the complicated nature of this recovery will never really be comprehended. To each and every single one who affected this in this country, in the service branches, at the State Department, throughout the whole of American government, and around the world at international governments around the world. Thank you so much. We just can't communicate the words this morning when we heard from the President. So we look forward to continuing the recovery of our son, which is going to be a considerable task for our family, and we hope that the media will understand that will keep us very preoccupied in the coming days and weeks as he gets back home to the United States. Thank you all for being here very much.
Thank you, man.
What normal American man from Idaho knows how to speak Arabic, Jack? I'm sorry.
Yeah, that one looked funny from the get-go. And remember, at that time, we didn't have the entire story.
No.
So we didn't know what we know now about Sergeant Bergdahl.
This guy said that his son was having trouble speaking English. I mean, you got to be kidding me. This guy shows up in the Rose Garden with a Muslim beard looking like a Chechenian. I'm sorry. Now, the other thing that the president said was that we were getting ready to get out of Afghanistan. I got news for you. That didn't work out. You know, so, all right, let's listen to what Sergeant Bergdahl's real sergeant says about him. Now, understand that these guys were forced to sign non-disclosure agreements. So they were obviously, from the past 3 clips that I played, they were obviously getting this guy played up like a hero. And a lot of it is because of the people that they traded for him, which we're going to get into that in a second. But let's listen to Sergeant Porter breaking this down about Private Bergdahl.
5 years, the soldiers who served with Bergdahl largely stayed silent about his disappearance and the efforts to find him. Many of them had been asked by the military to sign non-disclosure agreements about the matter, but now that he's free, they are coming forward to talk regardless of the consequences. Let's bring in former Army Sergeant Josh Porter. Josh, good to see you. You served with Bergdahl in Blackfoot Company, 2nd Platoon in Afghanistan, and you were recently discharged from the military. Emails reported by the late Michael Hastings in Rolling Stone in 2012 say that Bergdahl emails to his parents, was telling people he no longer supported the U.S. effort in Afghanistan. He wrote to his parents, quote, "I have seen their ideas about his commanding officers, and I am ashamed to even be American. The horror of the self-righteous arrogance that they thrive in, it is all revolting." He said that he was embarrassed to be an American. Did he ever express anything like that to you personally?
Yes, Jake. Pretty much as soon as we had gone to Afghanistan and things started to turn a little bit harder for all of us, he immediately started separating himself away from us, and everyone in the platoon and started gravitating more towards the Afghan soldiers.
Did he ever say that he didn't support the effort in the war anymore to you?
I didn't hear it directly out of his mouth, but I did hear very often people talking about it. I think I overheard a conversation once where he was talking to someone on the phone about it. He just always was trying to spread that word to people. He was never really happy about it.
Why do you think he left the observation post that morning?
I mean, honestly, I think he just wanted to go on an adventure without having anybody to answer to, without having anything to worry about. He wanted to be able to go out and see Afghanistan for himself without, the army stopping him or having to tell him what to do. I think he was just trying to, go on an adventure.
And I know from talking to you earlier and also more than a dozen of your fellow soldiers with the 501st and other units, a lot of people are upset because so many men were lost in the search for him. In fact, you have the names of 2 of those soldiers lost tattooed on your back. I believe Martinic and Andrews and Foster, 3 of them I see now, Blackfoot Company. Tell me about these men, and does this make you angry about Bergdahl's release?
In a way, it really does. It's very frustrating to me to turn on the TV and to see Bergdahl's family on the TV being shown to everyone. And then these soldiers, although they had very beautiful and extravagant ceremonies after they died, were pretty much only recognized in the local newspapers. They were never nationally televised for their sacrifices in the way that he is. And he pretty much voluntarily walked away and in turn caused the actions that may have killed them.
I know the parents of one of them, one of those soldiers who died, he died on the same day that Michael Jackson died, and he was very upset that not as much attention or even a minuscule amount of attention went to that death. Now as to what should happen to Bowe Bergdahl, Greg Leatherman, who I believe you know, he was a former squad leader, he said, quote, "I am pleased to see him return safely. From experience, I hope that he receives adequate reintegration counseling. I believe that an investigation should take place as soon as healthcare professionals deem Bergdahl fit to endure one." Talk to other soldiers who think that he should be court-martialed for desertion. What do you think?
I mean, by no means do I think that he needs to be pulled out of the hospital and brought before anybody right now during this time. I mean, I do understand that his family has had him gone for this period of time without any or very limited contact with him, and I understand that they probably want to, reunite some of those bonds. I mean, even soldiers in prison get to speak to their families from time to time, so I understand that.
Sure.
But as soon as he is able and as soon as he is fit, I do believe that he needs to be questioned and basically tried if necessary.
For leaving the observation post and for deserting the unit.
And yes, yeah, any of us would have died for him while he was with us. And then for him to just leave us like that, it was a very big betrayal.
Now, you and lots of other soldiers signed a non-disclosure agreement with the military. I've really never heard of anything like this happening on such a widespread scale for regular Joes as opposed to special forces. Are you worried now that the military is going to try to punish you for talking?
I mean, it's certainly a possibility, but I don't think that I could have continued to go on without being able to share with you and the people the true things that happen in this situation. Because if you guys aren't made aware of it, it'll just go on. He'll be a hero, and nobody's going to be able to know the truth.
And the truth that you want people to know is that he left, he deserted, in your view, and that good men died trying to find him?
I mean, he's at best a deserter and at worst a traitor.
Former Sergeant Josh Corder, thank you for us and thank you for your service.
Now, you know, ladies and gentlemen, it had to hurt Jake Tapper to do that interview. I mean, that's not something that he usually does. He did a pretty good job there.
Yeah, it was interesting when he said, you know, this is usually the when he was talking about the NDA, and he said that's usually for just special forces, Bob, and, you know, special operations type things. But the thing that I got is, you know, who are you going to believe now? Sergeant Porter, who has tattooed the names of 3 of his fallen fellow platoon members on his back, or the flowery speech by the president in the Rose Garden, or Condoleezza Rice talking about Bergdahl? Who are you going to believe?
Susan Rice, but yeah.
Susan Rice.
You're right. And you can go to the Facebook page and see those tattoos in that video. It's a pretty sizable, formidable tattoo.
Yeah, I know who I believe. Right. Sergeant Porter.
Absolutely. There's no question. And, you know, the reason, the whole reason behind this show is I feel that the way it was trickled out, that it kind of lost, a lot of it was lost just over time. I mean, when you take this together as a whole in 1 hour and you analyze each piece of this, we had a really despicable administration. And I'm really going to bring that home now. I want you to listen to this clip. This is going to tell you. Now, remember, I've been building up to this. Private Bergdahl was worthless when it comes to intelligence. He was a good soldier. I have nothing against 11 Bravo. He was airborne. It was the 82nd Airborne Division, a unit from there. I'm pretty sure by the pictures of him in the maroon beret. And I think the 501st is part of the 82nd. I'm almost positive. But a PFC has no knowledge. He doesn't get the SOI. He gets the password. That's about it. The challenge and the password. But they expire every 24 hours. So he's not an intelligence prize. Listen to who the president traded this traitor for.
In response to criticism of the deal for the release of Bergdahl, the president's spokesman said today it was absolutely the right thing to do. Major Garrett is at the White House for us. Major?
Maurice, critics like Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina accused President Obama of releasing the Taliban Dream Team from Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Top advisors don't deny the 5 detainees traded for Bowe Bergdahl were not hardened Taliban killers, but the White House argues their release does not undermine U.S. national security. All 5 detainees were active Taliban fighters and planners. 3 held leadership posts in the Taliban government. Mohammed Fazl was a former deputy minister of defense and founding Taliban member. Abdul Haq was
Minister of Defense, Secretary of Defense. Continue.
Sikh was a former deputy intelligence minister and confidant of top Taliban leader Mullah Omar. Mullah Nurullah Nori was a senior Taliban commander in northern Afghanistan and one of the highest-ranking Taliban held at Guantanamo. All 5 are now in Qatar, unable to leave for 1 year. Their activities will be monitored by authorities there. Today, White House Press Secretary Jay Carney said there were sufficient safeguards in place. Do you disagree with the characterization of the 5 released detainees as among the hardest of the hard and possibly responsible for the deaths of thousands of people?
We have a long history in this country, and our allies do as well, of exchanging prisoners in an armed conflict, especially when that armed conflict is coming to an end.
The White House argues that the end of combat operations at the end of this year in Afghanistan also justified the release of these 5 detainees. By the time the 5 leave Qatar, there will be fewer than 10,000 U.S. forces in Afghanistan. Maurice, the White House argues that will lower the threat to them if they return to the fight.
Now, Major, the president's required by law to give 30 days of notice before releasing detainees from Guantanamo. What happened in this case?
The White House argues the president as commander-in-chief had the authority to ignore that law if there was very little time to negotiate, which is exactly what the White House says occurred in this case and justified winning the release of Bowe Bergdahl. Republicans and Democrats who were supposed to have been briefed about all this are not yet convinced.
Okay, Major Garrett at the White House for us tonight. Thank you.
So, 2 cabinet members and 3 generals for a private. And all because the war was going to end in 2014. Because that was the first, actually the second White House spokesman. That was back in the Jay Carney days. So the war was going to end back when Jay Carney was the spokesman. And that's why we traded a private for 5 generals. And the war never ended.
Yeah, it's like Obama wanted us to believe that he's trading the JV team for a hero when the truth of the matter, he traded the Joint Chiefs for a traitor.
Exactly. It's unbelievable. And, you know, this is another reason why you have to know that the Republicans in Washington are frauds. Especially people like McCain. And where are they? You know, these guys, I guarantee you all 5 of these guys are out. None of them are in Qatar. They're all out there. I think they
lost count of them guys only a few months after they released them, to be honest.
There's no doubt in my mind. I mean, this was a farce. The whole thing was a farce. This was to help Afghanistan win. The Taliban win. But you know what? It's all done now and everything's good. Last clip. What does Bergdahl do now?
His apology from Army Sergeant Bowe Bergdahl. He offered that apology Monday to those wounded while searching for him after he abandoned his post in Afghanistan in 2009. Bergdahl called the move a terrible mistake. He read from a statement that he was trying to do something good and it turned out bad. He was captured by the Taliban but ultimately released in a controversial prisoner exchange. Bergdahl faces life in prison. The sentencing phase continues today at Fort Bragg.
They ought to take him out, back, tie him to a pole, and shoot him, Jack.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've read that. If you haven't, folks, bookmark it and check out that article that's linked in the show notes on it. It's interesting. Part of his testimony, Bergdahl said he was trying to walk 20 miles to the next outpost so he can complain about his commanders. I mean, like, are you buying that? No.
It's unbelievable. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed that. I know some of it was hard to take, but I wanted to make sure that we had this all in context because the media is wonderful at distributing this here, this there, this here, and counting on you never remembering any of it and putting it all together. What a despicable administration. And it's something that we can't afford to ever do that again. We cannot afford to ever elect so many people that hate the United States of America and hate our military that we can allow something like this to happen. Let's roll on, change gears a little bit. We don't have much time left, but I'm going to go over a couple stories really quickly. If you want to call in, 412-567-1460, feel free. Berkeley could make it even harder for city police to control violent protests. Sometimes I think these people just want their cities to burn, Jack. I mean, this is from the Daily Caller. The Berkeley City Council is going to discuss today, limiting the Berkeley Police Department's ability to use force policy. I mean, on the surface, what?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is this weekend coming up, the 4th of November, is the nationwide Antifa revolution protest. So this makes sense. They're going to try to restrict the police. They want this to get ugly.
You know, you're right. It's sad. It really is. And another thing is that Milo's back, man. Milo's getting ready to speak. I don't know if he's going to use Berkeley, but there's talk that he's going back to California, and he's not going to stand down. So that's going to be interesting to watch. It is.
Yeah, it's it's no surprise. I'm just the interesting thing about the November the 4th. There's also a nationwide exercise on ham radio communications. The drill is if there was a coronal mass ejection and basically like the sun produced EMP, and they're going to try to have communications going on during this thing. And so anytime there's a nationwide DOD exercise coinciding with something like this, my eyebrows get raised,
Well, the ham radio doesn't have anything to do with DOD. I mean,
it's a combination of just DOD with Mars radio stations and ham affiliates trying to make sure that they can all communicate. Because I did the Mars radio station in Desert Storm, so and that's just basically phone patching back to ham operators here in the United States to let us. I mean, that's how far back I go.
No, I'm an extra class ham radio operator myself. I mean, I participated in it, but the thing about EMP and things like that's unpredictable on the ham bands. You don't know what's going to happen. It's kind of exciting, actually. But we'll check it. I might get one of my transceivers out and put an antenna up. Who knows?
I think it's a 60-meter band on ham, so you would know that.
Yeah.
I don't do ham too much.
Well, yes. President Donald Trump will visit Beijing in November as the Chinese oil giant Sinopec considers significant investments in the United States Gulf Coast oil industry, Reuters reports. Can Trump convince China to make a huge energy investment in the United States? This guy is moving at warp speed with every new day that comes, Jack. There's a new angle or a new deal or a new industry that's opening up that he is absolutely taking advantage of. I mean, this could be a very exciting future for us.
Yeah, and he's not. It used to be they tried to organize this TPP and keep China out of it. So China's always been fighting. They finally got into World Trade Organization. Trump's like, I'm going to deal with countries one-on-one.
Right.
What is one of the largest economic superpowers out there? China. So is the United States. So it makes sense to deal with them one-on-one rather than go through all these consortiums and try to what they end up doing is basically screwing the U.S. and the U.S. workers and the taxpayers. And, I mean, it's just Trump is turning it all around. I mean, China's already been, stopped taking North Korean coal and was buying it from us.
I mean, and he has he has the Chamber of Commerce president at the White House today. So he's using his Machiavellian skills as well, keeping his enemies close. Because he's the guy that wants the open. He wants the open. That's all right. He wants the open borders. I can't remember his name now. O'Donnell, I think it is.
Yeah,
it's something like that. But he's the president of the Chamber of Commerce, and he's not a Trump supporter. Let's put it that way. He's more of a GOP Jeb Bush type supporter. Wants all the borders wide open.
Yeah, well, that apple cart's been upset since November of last year.
No doubt.
But the one last thing is I'm certainly hoping that they'll have some time to spend talking about the North Korean deal while he's on his Asian visit.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure that you've already heard good stories out of China. The thing about North Korea that I did not mention yesterday that I should have is that their main sponsor initially was the Soviet Union and China also, but mainly the Soviet Union. When the Soviet Union went away, so did all that support. And now they've got waning support from China because of Trump. Not just because of Trump, because of Pruitt, because of the Treasury Secretary, Mnuchin. So this is a new day for North Korea, and hopefully they figure it out before it's too late. As I said at the beginning of the show, 8 dead after truck driver runs down pedestrians in New York City. Out of Breitbart, a suspect is in custody after mowing down pedestrians in an act of terror in Lower Manhattan, killing 8, and that can always change. This is a very early report. According to New York Mayor Bill de Blasio, witnesses, according to Fox News, saw the suspect shout Allahu Akbar upon exiting his car after driving the wrong way on a busy bike lane. Bike lanes should have never been invented, by the way. Near West and Chambers Street. After striking several people, the individual left his vehicle and was shot by 5-0. So we'll get more details on that as we go. I got
one update to it. I saw it on OAN, One America Network. The suspect is an Uzbekistan national.
All right.
So that's what I got for you.
There you go. So we'll, I'm sure we'll see him in court, and he'll be granted all the pleasantries and things that he needs. He'll get the city of New York will give him his own Koran and a prayer rug, I'm sure. And wherever he's incarcerated, they'll probably make all the other prisoners stop eating pork and everything else. I'm sorry, I got a bitter taste in my mouth with New York City and Pittsburgh. You know, any leftist area. My mayor invited all these interpreters from Afghanistan and Iraq in here, and it's like you don't know anything about these people, and you're putting them in our cities, and you're starting to see them. You know, and I'm not afraid of being called anything. I'm calling it like I see it. These people can't police themselves, let alone let us try to do it. Now, all right, we're going to have to pay attention to that. Now, another part of this Trump phenomenon that's happening, Representative Jeb Hensarling won't be running for re-election in 2018. He's scaring the hell out of these people. Again from Breitbart and Michelle Moons out of Washington. Yet another establishment insider has announced that he will not run for re-election in 2018. Republican Representative Jeb Hensarling of Texas, Tuesday afternoon, this was reported. I hate articles that have tweet embedded in them. They're so hard to read. House Financial Services Committee Chairman Hensarling issued a statement the same day regarding his retirement. Today I'm announcing I will not seek re-election to the U.S. Congress in 2018. Although service in Congress remains the greatest privilege of my life, I never intended to make it a lifetime commitment, and I have already stayed far longer than I had originally planned. And you know what should happen now, Jack, and what should happen when every congressman leaves? They should do a complete 100% audit of his finances.
Oh yeah, wouldn't that be nice? It's like the gravy train is getting empty. I mean, all these people have been up there sucking the taxpayer blood for years upon years upon years, and now the well's starting to dry up. People are starting to be arrested, and the people that were just recently arrested have to do with the money that's usually shoveled into the congressman's back pockets.
Just like the military, there ought to be an out-processing checklist. You should have to out-process out of there so they can, because have you seen Paul Ryan's house? Paul Ryan never had a real job in his life. He worked for Jack Kemp when he was a teenager and moved right into Congress. And he's got a house with a big giant gate, fence around it. It's unreal. It's just, I don't know. I'd like to see this cleaned up. I don't know if it's possible. And by the way, Hensarling, let me scroll down to the bottom of this. In November 2016, the Texas Tribune called Hensarling one of Ryan's closest friends in the House. So there you go. You see what he's...
Surprise, surprise.
Exactly. I mean, this is something that... let's see, National Republican Congressional Committee Chairman Steve Stivers, never heard of him, reacted to the news of Hensarling's retirement. Jeb Hensarling has been a tremendous public servant for the people of Texas, most recently as the chairman of the Financial Services Committee, of which I am privileged to serve. Jeb's strong grasp of policy and his strong conservative principles have been an invaluable asset to the Republican conference in his 8 terms as a member of the House of Representatives. Yeah, he didn't mean to stay long, did he?
Yeah. Accidentally stayed here for 16 years. Oh, dude, I'm got to go. But
it was over just like that.
This is Make America Great Again. It's happening. And if I may take just a couple minutes to remind my fellow Virginia listeners, we have the opportunity, the next chance at making this country great, or at least the Commonwealth great again. We have an election coming up next Tuesday. So next Tuesday, get out there, vote. It's one of these oddball things, but we got governor, lieutenant governor, and something else I can't remember. But we've got our chance to be shown. I mean, let's keep it going. Let's jump on top of the Judge Moore bandwagon and elect a GOP governor.
Now, Judge Moore, you got to get out of D.C. and get back down to Alabama. Hey, any final comments? We're out of time.
No, thanks to all the people listening. And like I said, get out there and vote Virginia next Tuesday.
All right.
Thanks, Hutch.
Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, in the chat room and listening live, thank you very much. Please tell your friends about the show. Get back to the website, steelcityresistance.com, become a patron, or get some of that 15% off Black Rifle coffee. I'm Hutch Bailey Jr. on Facebook, Berg's Eye View on Twitter, heading over to the Wayne Dupree Show, I'm pretty sure. So that's up next. I'll be back on Thursday with Stacey Rush. Thanks for letting us into your life for 1 hour, ladies and gentlemen. God bless.